Welcome, dear listener, to another gentle journey into ancient Egypt, around 1400 BCE. Tonight we'll discover why people believed the sun was a god, alongside those who live beneath its daily passage across the endless desert sky. Whether you're settling into bed or already drifting toward deep sleep, I'm grateful you're here to explore these quiet corners of history with me. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from tonight? Perhaps somewhere the morning sun still touches your window, or maybe where evening shadows are already gathering. It's a lovely thought, all of us finding our way to deep sleep through these timeless stories from long ago. The first pale light touches the eastern horizon as Kenti stirs on his simple reed mat, his body naturally awakening before the sun god Ra begins his daily journey across the heavens. Kenti's bare feet touch the cool limestone floor of his small chamber within the great temple complex of Ptah in Memphis. The stone holds the night's coolness, a blessed relief that will soon give way to the relentless heat of another summer day along the Nile. He moves slowly, deliberately, as he has every morning for the past 15 years since becoming a priest. His movements are unhurried, meditative, part of a rhythm as ancient as the river itself. The air carries the faint scent of frankincense from yesterday's ceremonies, mixing with the earthy smell of the Nile mud that forms the very foundation of their world. Through the narrow window opening, high in the wall, he can hear the gentle lapping of water against the temple's stone steps. The great river never sleeps, never stops its eternal flow northward toward the Mediterranean, carrying the life-giving silt that makes this narrow green strip possible in an otherwise endless desert. Kenti reaches for his washing bowl, carved from a single piece of alabaster, and filled the night before with water drawn from the sacred well. The water is cool against his skin as he performs his morning purification, the same ritual ablutions that priests have performed in this very spot for generations. He cups the water in his palms, feeling its weight, its coolness, its essential nature. Water and sun. These are the two great forces that make life possible in this land of extremes. His daily clothing is simple but precise. First, the linen undergarment, woven from flax grown in the fertile delta and bleached white under the desert sun until it gleams like moonlight. The fabric is soft from many washings, comfortable against his skin, practical for the heat that will come. Over this he drapes his priestly kilt, pleated and starched, held at the waist with a simple cord. The white linen represents purity, cleanliness, the necessary state of being that allows him to approach the divine. As he dresses, Kenti's mind turns naturally to the great mystery that governs his life and the life of every person in Egypt, the daily death and rebirth of Ra, the sun god. Outside, the eastern sky is growing lighter, shifting from the deep blue-black of night to the softer grey that precedes dawn. Soon, very soon, Ra's solar bark will emerge from the underworld, where he has spent the night hours fighting the serpent Apophis, ensuring that light and order will return to the world once more. The concept is not abstract to Kenti. He has watched the sun rise thousands of times, has seen how its absence brings cold and fear, how its presence brings warmth and the ability to work, to grow food, to live. The sun is not merely a distant burning object, it is the source of all life, the great god whose daily journey across the sky determines whether Egypt will continue to exist or fall into eternal darkness. He opens the wooden shutters of his chamber, and the first direct rays of sunlight stream through the opening. The light is golden, warm against his face, and he stands motionless for a long moment, feeling its touch. This is the miracle that happens every single day, the return of Ra from his nightly battle with chaos and destruction. The light grows stronger moment by moment, and Kenti can hear the awakening sounds of the temple complex around him. From the courtyard below comes the soft scraping sound of sandals on stone, as other priests begin their own morning preparations. The temple bakery is already active. He can smell bread baking, the familiar scent of barley and emmer wheat, being transformed into the staff of life. Water splashes in the sacred pool as someone performs purification rituals. A dove coos from somewhere in the palm trees that line the temple walls, their fronds rustling in the gentle morning breeze that rises from the river. Kenty descends the narrow stone steps from his chamber to the main level of the temple. The corridors are dim, lit only by the growing daylight filtering through high windows and doorways. His sandals, made of woven papyrus, make soft whispering sounds against the stone. The walls around him are covered with hieroglyphic inscriptions and painted scenes depicting the eternal cycle of the sun's journey, images that tell the same story he lives every day. In the preparation chamber he joins 3 other priests who serve the morning ritual. They work in companionable silence, each understanding his role perfectly. There is Amenhotep, older than Kenty by perhaps 10 years, whose hands are steady and sure as he arranges the offering bowls. There is young Seneb, barely past his training, who handles the frankincense with careful reverence. And there is Kaimuast, the ritual reader, who will speak the ancient words that help guide Ra's bark across the sky. The offering table is spread with the finest products of Egypt's bounty. Loaves of bread, still warm from the ovens, shaped into perfect rounds and marked with the sacred symbols. Jars of beer, brewed from barley and flavoured with dates, the drink that sustains both gods and mortals. Fresh fruits from the temple gardens, figs and grapes, pomegranates and dates, their colours bright against the white linen cloth. Cuts of roasted duck and goose, prepared according to ancient specifications, seasoned with salt and honey. These offerings are not mere symbols, but actual sustenance, food that the god will symbolically consume before being distributed to the temple staff and the poor of Memphis. Nothing is wasted in this careful economy of the sacred. The god takes the spiritual essence of the food, leaving the physical substance to nourish human bodies. It is a practical arrangement that acknowledges both divine needs and human hunger. As they work, the light outside grows stronger, and Kenty can feel the familiar stirring in his chest that comes with the approach of sunrise. For 15 years he has experienced this daily miracle, and still it moves him. The return of light, the victory over darkness, the renewal of life itself. These are not abstract concepts, but lived realities. Each sunrise is a personal gift, a sign that Ra has once again chosen to bless the world with his presence. The great doors of the temple face east, toward the rising sun, and as the moment approaches they swing open on well-oiled hinges. The first rays of direct sunlight stream into the holy sanctuary, illuminating the golden statue of Ra that stands at the centre of the inner chamber. The statue, carved from precious cedar wood and covered with gold leaf, seems to come alive in the growing light. Its painted eyes appear to open, its face to warm with divine presence. Kenty lifts the heavy silver censer, filled with glowing coals from the sacred fire that is never allowed to die. The coals are made from tamarisk charcoal, wood that grows along the riverbank, transformed by fire into something that can carry prayers upward to the divine realm. He sprinkles frankincense onto the coals, and immediately the air fills with sweet resinous smoke. The scent is intoxicating, calming, a bridge between the earthly realm and the world of the gods. The smoke rises in gentle spirals, carrying with it the prayers and hopes of Memphis. Each grain of frankincense represents a life, a family, a dream for the future. Kenty breathes deeply, feeling the sacred smoke fill his lungs, becoming part of his own body. He is the intermediary, the bridge between human need and divine abundance. Kaimuas begins the morning hymn, his voice trained to carry the ancient words with proper intonation and rhythm. The language is old, older than living memory, passed down through generations of priests who understood that some words hold power beyond their immediate meaning. The hymn tells the story of Ra's nightly journey through the underworld, his battle with the forces of chaos, his triumphant emergence into the eastern sky. As the words flow, Kenty arranges the offerings on the altar. Each item has its proper place, determined by centuries of tradition. The bread goes to the east, toward the rising sun. The beer is placed to the south, representing the full power of midday. The fruits are arranged to the west, acknowledging the evening's approach. The meat offerings go to the north, completing the sacred circle that mirrors Ra's daily path across the heavens. The routine is meditative, almost trance-like. Kenty's hands know their work without conscious thought, leaving his mind free to contemplate the great mystery of existence. Why does the sun rise? Why does it set? Why does it return each morning instead of abandoning the world to eternal darkness? These questions have no answers that human reason can grasp, but the daily ritual provides a way to participate in the mystery, to contribute to the cosmic order that keeps chaos at bay. Outside the temple, the city of Memphis is awakening. Kenty can hear the distant sounds of daily life beginning, the lowing of cattle being led to water, the calls of merchants setting up their stalls in the market, the laughter of children playing in the streets. All of this ordinary human activity is made possible by the extraordinary daily miracle of sunrise, the return of the God who makes life itself possible. The light is growing stronger now, streaming through the temple doorway and illuminating every corner of the sanctuary. The golden surfaces reflect and multiply the light, creating the sense that the entire chamber is filled with divine presence. This is the moment Kenty has been preparing for, the climax of the morning ritual when earth and heaven seem to touch. He raises the offering bowl, holding it toward the rising sun. The gesture is both simple and profound, an acknowledgement that everything good in human life comes ultimately from the great solar disk that rules the day. The bread, the beer, the fruit, the meat, all of it grows under the sun's warmth, depends on the sun's light, participates in the sun's daily cycle of death and rebirth. The other priests join him in the final prayer, their voices blending in harmonious petition. They ask for the basic necessities of life: enough food for all people, sufficient water for the crops, protection from the chaos that always threatens to overwhelm the ordered world. They ask for the continuation of the great cycle that has sustained Egypt for thousands of years, the reliable pattern of flood and harvest, sunrise and sunset, life and death and renewal. As the formal ritual concludes, Kenty remains for a few moments in the growing warmth of the morning sun. He thinks about the day ahead, the duties that await him, the small acts of service that will fill the hours until evening. There will be more rituals at midday when the sun reaches its highest point, more offerings in the afternoon as Ra begins his journey toward the western horizon, more prayers at sunset as the god prepares once again to enter the underworld and fight the forces of darkness. But now, in this moment of pure morning light, all of that lies ahead like an unopened scroll. The sun is rising. Ra is beginning his daily journey across the sky, and the world is once again safe from the terrors of endless night. Kenty feels the warmth on his face, the light in his eyes, the profound gratitude that comes with witnessing daily miracle of existence itself. Yet as he prepares to leave the sanctuary and begin the ordinary tasks of the day, a question stirs in his mind like a gentle current in still water. The morning ritual is complete. The sun is rising according to the eternal pattern. But what sustains the god himself during his long journey across the vast desert sky? What feeds the divine fire that makes all earthly life possible? Chapter 2. The Daily Bread. Following Ra's path across the sky. The morning ritual complete, Kenty moves through the temple corridors as the sun climbs higher in the eastern sky. The limestone walls, cool to the touch just an hour before, are already beginning to warm under Ra's strengthening rays. Through the high windows he can see the great solar disk ascending steadily, following the ancient path that divides each day into its sacred portions. In the temple bakery, the daily work of feeding both gods and mortals continues as it has for countless generations. Kenty pauses in the doorway, watching the bakers at their eternal labour. The ovens built into the thick walls of the complex glow with steady heat. The fire within them is fed by wood brought down the Nile from the forests far to the south. Acacia and sycamore, palm fronds and dried papyrus stalks, all transformed into the sacred flame that bakes the bread of life. The head baker, a woman named Nebet whose arms are strong from years of kneading dough, works at a low wooden table worn smooth by decades of use. Her movements are rhythmic, almost dance-like, as she shapes the morning's offering loaves. Each loaf must be perfect, round as the sun disk itself, marked with the sacred symbols that identify it as food fit for divine consumption. The dough beneath her hands is warm and yielding, made from emmer wheat ground in the temple mills and mixed with water drawn from the sacred well. Kenty can smell the complex layers of scent that fill the bakery, the nutty aroma of baking wheat, the sweet undertones of dates and honey added to certain ceremonial breads, the earthy smell of the clay ovens themselves. These ovens have been rebuilt many times over the centuries, but always in the same pattern, always oriented to catch the morning light, always designed to transform raw grain into the staff of life through the application of carefully controlled fire. Young apprentices move between the ovens and the preparation tables, carrying baskets of shaped loaves ready for baking, removing finished bread whose crusts gleam golden brown in the growing daylight. Their faces shine with perspiration despite the early hour. By midday, when Ra reaches his full power overhead, the work in the bakery will become almost unbearable, and the bakers will retreat to the cooler storage chambers until the afternoon brings some relief. From the bakery, Kenty makes his way to the temple granaries, vast storage chambers hewn from the living rock beneath the complex. Here, in the cool darkness, are stored the treasures that make Egyptian civilization possible. Endless rows of clay jars filled with grain, each one sealed with wax and marked with hieroglyphic notations indicating its contents, origin, and date of storage. The granary keeper, an elderly man named Tahemheb, moves among the jars with the careful attention of someone who understands that these stores represent the difference between life and death for thousands of people. His reed stylus scratches against papyrus as he updates the daily records. How much grain was distributed to the bakers, how much remains in storage, which jars should be opened next to ensure that the oldest grain is used before it spoils. The river is still high, Tahemheb observes, his voice echoing softly in the stone chamber. The scribes say it may remain so for another month. If Ra blesses us with a good flood this year, we will have grain enough to last through next summer's heat. Kenty nods, understanding the deeper meaning beneath these practical words. The Nile flood, which comes each year as Ra's power reaches its peak in midsummer, is the foundation of all Egyptian prosperity. When the flood is good, carrying rich silt from the mountains far to the south, the grain harvest will be abundant. When the flood fails, as it sometimes does, the granaries empty and people go hungry. Everything depends on the delicate balance between the sun's heat and the river's gift, between divine blessing and natural catastrophe. Climbing back to the upper levels of the temple, Kenty emerges into the growing heat of the morning. Ra has climbed perhaps a quarter of the way across the sky, and already the air shimmers with the promise of the scorching day to come. The shadows cast by the temple walls are shorter now, shifting visibly as the sun continues its relentless journey westward. In the temple gardens, the morning watering is already complete. The gardeners began their work before dawn, carrying water from the sacred pool to nourish the plants that provide fresh offerings for the daily rituals. Fig trees spread their broad leaves to catch the morning light, their branches heavy with fruit that will ripen in the weeks to come. Date palms tower overhead, their fronds rustling in the slight breeze that still carries coolness from the river. Between the trees, carefully tended beds of vegetables grow in neat rows: onions and leeks, garlic and radishes, lettuce and cucumber. These gardens represent a triumph of human ingenuity over the harsh desert environment. Every drop of water must be carefully managed, every plant positioned to take advantage of the shade cast by its neighbours, every harvest timed to make the best use of the growing season. Kenty kneels beside a bed of barley, examining the green shoots that push up through the dark soil. This grain, planted after the last flood receded, will be harvested in a few weeks when Ra's heat has ripened it to golden perfection. The individual stalks are tender now, vulnerable to pests and disease, dependent on the careful balance of water and sunlight that the gardeners provide. Yet if all goes well, each tiny seed will multiply itself many times over, contributing to the abundance that allows Egyptian civilization to flourish. The morning air carries sounds from beyond the temple walls, the city of Memphis awakening to another day of labour under the sun. Kenty can hear the rhythmic pounding of mallets as construction workers shape stone for new buildings, the creak of wooden wheels as ox carts carry goods through the narrow streets, the calls of vendors already setting up their stalls in the market squares. All of this activity is governed by the sun's movement across the sky. The stoneworkers will labour until the heat becomes unbearable, then retreat to shaded places until late afternoon. The market vendors will do their busiest trade in the early morning and evening hours, when people can venture out without risking exhaustion from the heat. The rhythm of human life follows the rhythm of Ra's daily journey, adapting to the god's overwhelming presence overhead. From his position in the garden, Kenty can see across the temple walls to the great pyramids that rise from the desert plateau to the west. These ancient monuments, built by pharaohs long dead, catch the morning light on their eastern faces, while their western sides remain in shadow. By evening, this pattern will reverse, with the setting sun illuminating the western faces while the eastern sides lie in darkness. The pyramids themselves are symbols of the sun's eternal cycle, their pointed peaks reaching toward the sky where Ra travels in his solar bark. The heat is building now, even in the relative coolness of the temple gardens. Kenty can feel perspiration beginning to gather on his forehead, the first sign that Ra's power is growing toward its midday peak. The white linen of his priestly garments, so comfortable in the dawn coolness, is starting to feel warm against his skin. Soon it will be time to seek shelter in the cooler interior chambers of the temple, to wait out the most brutal hours of the day in the blessed relief of thick stone walls and deep shadows. But first, there is one more task to complete in the morning routine. Kenty makes his way to the temple brewery, where another of Egypt's essential foods is prepared according to recipes as old as the kingdom itself. Beer, made from barley and flavoured with dates and honey, is not merely a drink, but a fundamental source of nutrition. The weak beer served to children and workers provides calories and vitamins that supplement their diet of bread and vegetables. The stronger beer reserved for festivals and offerings to the gods carries the power to transport consciousness beyond the ordinary world. The brewery master, a stocky man named Senusret, tends the great ceramic vats where barley mash ferments in the controlled warmth of the chamber. The process requires precise timing. Too little fermentation, and the beer will be weak and tasteless. Too much, and it will become sour and undrinkable. Senusret has learned to judge the progress by smell and taste, by the sound of bubbling fermentation, by subtle changes in colour and texture that speak to his trained senses. The morning batch is nearly ready, Senusret reports, ladling a small sample for Kenty to taste. The beer is dark and slightly sweet, with the complex flavours that come from careful brewing. It will be offered to Ra at the midday ritual, then distributed to the temple staff as part of their daily rations. Nothing is wasted, nothing is taken lightly. Even the spent grain from the brewing process will be fed to the temple's cattle, continuing the cycle that transforms Ra's solar energy into forms that can sustain human and animal life. As the morning advances toward its conclusion, Kenty finds himself drawn once again to the eastern windows of the temple. Ra has climbed steadily higher, his heat growing more intense with each passing moment. The god's journey across the sky is not uniform but follows a precise pattern, rising slowly at first, then climbing more rapidly toward the midday zenith, then beginning the long afternoon descent toward the western horizon, where he will disappear into the underworld for another night of cosmic battle. The people of Memphis understand this pattern intimately, organising their lives around its rhythms. Farmers work their fields in the early morning and late afternoon, avoiding the crushing heat of midday. Craftsmen position their workshops to take advantage of the morning light, while providing shelter from the afternoon sun. Even the animals seek shade during the hottest hours, emerging to graze only when Ra's power moderates toward evening. This is not superstition, but practical wisdom, accumulated over thousands of years of life in the desert. The sun is not merely an object in the sky, but a force that shapes every aspect of existence. Its heat can kill or sustain, its light can blind or illuminate. Its daily cycle provides the fundamental rhythm that governs all earthly activity. To call it a god is not primitive thinking, but profound recognition of its absolute power over human life. Standing in the temple corridor, feeling the heat radiating from the stone walls, Kenty reflects on the morning's activities. The bread has been baked, the beer brewed, the gardens watered, the granaries inventoried. All of these tasks are preparations for sustaining life through another day under Ra's rule. Yet they are also acts of worship, ways of participating in the great cosmic order that the sun god maintains through his eternal vigilance. The morning offerings have been made, the proper rituals observed, the necessary prayers spoken. Ra has accepted the gifts of bread and beer, fruits and meat, frankincense and flowers. In return, he continues his journey across the sky, providing the light and heat that make all earthly activity possible. The contract between gods and mortals is renewed each day through these simple acts of devotion and practical preparation. But as the heat builds toward the midday peak, as the shadows grow shorter and the air begins to shimmer with rising thermals, Kenty finds himself wondering about the nature of divine sustenance. The temple provides offerings to feed the god, but what truly nourishes Ra during his long journey across the burning sky? What gives him the strength to fight the forces of darkness each night and emerge victorious each dawn? Chapter 3. Midday Ceremonies. Honouring the sun at its peak. The heat has become a living thing now, rising from the stone courtyards in visible waves that distort the air like water. Kenty retreats deeper into the temple's interior chambers, where the thick limestone walls provide blessed relief from Ra's overwhelming presence overhead. The god has reached the midpoint of his daily journey, standing directly above Memphis with power so intense that even the birds have fallen silent, seeking whatever shade they can find among the palm fronds and temple eaves. In the inner sanctuary, the midday ritual requires different preparations than the gentle ceremonies of dawn. The offerings must be arranged with greater care, for Ra's power at its zenith can be dangerous as well as life-giving. Too much exposure to the god's direct gaze can burn human skin, blind mortal eyes, even kill those foolish enough to venture unprotected into the open desert during the peak hours. The midday worship acknowledges this terrible aspect of divine power, while seeking to channel it for beneficial purposes. Kenty joins his fellow priests in the preparation chamber, their movements slower now, conserved in the face of the mounting heat. Even within the temple's protective walls, the air is warm and heavy. The priests have changed their mourning garments for lighter robes, still white linen but woven more loosely to allow what little breeze exists to reach their skin. Their heads are covered now with linen cloths that provide protection should they need to venture into the direct sunlight. Amenhotep moves carefully as he arranges the midday offerings, his movements deliberate and economical. The older priest has learned to conserve his strength during the most challenging hours of the day. His hands, steady despite the heat, place golden cups filled with cool water at precise points around the altar. The water itself is an offering of the most precious kind. In a land where the desert stretches endlessly in all directions, water represents life itself, the fundamental gift that allows anything to exist in this harsh environment. Young Seneb tends the incense braziers, adding fresh frankincense to the glowing coals. The sweet smoke rises in lazy spirals, and Kenty notices how even the smoke moves differently in the midday heat, more slowly, more thickly, as if the air itself has become dense with Ra's presence. The scent is more intense now, more penetrating, as if the heat amplifies the power of the sacred resins to carry prayers upward to the divine realm. The ritual foods for the midday offering are different from those of the morning. Instead of warm bread fresh from the ovens, cool foods are presented. Fruits chilled in underground storage chambers, milk kept cool in porous clay vessels, honey mixed with water to create a refreshing drink. These offerings acknowledge that even gods might seek relief from the intensity of their own power, might appreciate the cooling gifts that provide respite from the burning sky. Caemwast, the ritual reader, prepares the sacred texts for the midday ceremony. The papyrus scrolls are kept in cedar boxes to protect them from the dry heat that can make the delicate material brittle and prone to cracking. The words he will speak are different from the morning hymns, stronger, more formal, acknowledging the awesome power that Ra wields at the height of his daily journey. These are prayers of respect tinged with healthy fear, recognition that the God who gives life can just as easily take it away. Through the high windows of the sanctuary, the light that enters is blindingly bright, almost white in its intensity. It illuminates the golden surfaces of the ritual objects with such brilliance that they seem to glow with their own internal fire. The statue of Ra at the centre of the chamber appears almost alive in this light, its painted features seeming to move and shift as the shadows cast by the frankincense smoke dance across its surface. The sound of the midday ceremony is different too, more subdued, more reverent. The priests speak in quieter voices, as if afraid that too much noise might draw unwanted attention from the terrible power overhead. Their movements are careful, precise, avoiding any gesture that might be interpreted as disrespectful to the god at the height of his strength. This is not the hopeful celebration of dawn, but the cautious acknowledgement of forces beyond human control. Outside the temple walls, the city of Memphis has settled into the rhythm of midday survival. The sounds that drift through the windows are muted now, the occasional creak of shutters being adjusted to block the direct sunlight, the soft splash of water being poured for drinking or washing, the quiet conversations of people taking shelter in whatever cool spaces they can find. The bustling activity of morning has given way to patient endurance, waiting for the sun's power to moderate enough to allow normal life to resume. In the temple workshops, the craftsmen have long since abandoned their outdoor workbenches. The metalworkers cannot touch their tools, which have become too hot to handle safely. The stone carvers have retreated to underground chambers where they can continue their work by lamplight. Only the most essential activities continue. The preparation of food in the coolest kitchens, the tending of the sacred fires that must never be allowed to die, the minimal maintenance required to keep the temple functioning through the brutal midday hours. Kenty helps carry the offering vessels to the altar, feeling the heat radiating from the stone floor even through his sandals. The limestone pavement has absorbed so much solar energy that it has become like a giant storage heater, radiating warmth that will continue long after the sun has set. He moves carefully, aware that a misstep could result in burns from the superheated stone surfaces. The water offerings are perhaps the most poignant part of the midday ritual. Each golden cup contains water drawn from the deepest wells, cool and pure, representing the most precious gift the temple can offer to the god who rules the desert sky. As Kenty places the cups on the altar, he thinks about the irony, offering water to the very deity whose power makes water so desperately precious. Yet this is the nature of divine relationship, giving back to the gods the gifts they have already provided, acknowledging the circular nature of cosmic abundance. The ceremony begins with Caemwast's invocation, his voice carrying clearly through the heavy air. The words speak of Ra's journey to the zenith of power, his victory over the forces of chaos and darkness, his role as the eternal king whose rule extends over all the lands touched by sunlight. But woven through these praises are subtle requests for moderation, for mercy, for the wisdom to know when divine power should be tempered with divine compassion. As the formal prayers continue, Kenty finds his attention drawn to the interplay of light and shadow within the sanctuary. The direct sunlight streaming through the windows creates sharp-edged pools of brilliance, alternating with deep shadows. In the shadowed areas, the air is noticeably cooler, providing small refuges where the priests can rest their eyes from the overwhelming brightness. The architecture of the temple itself becomes part of the ritual, creating spaces where mortals can approach divine power without being destroyed by it. The offering of incense takes on special significance during the midday ceremony, as Kenty adds fresh frankincense to the brazier. The smoke that rises seems to carry with it all the heat and intensity of the day. The resin crackles and pops in the glowing coals, releasing its aromatic essence in concentrated bursts. The smoke creates its own weather system within the sanctuary, rising rapidly in the heated air, then spreading across the ceiling in lazy clouds that eventually find their way out through the high windows. The bread offered at midday is flat bread, baked quickly in the early morning before the heat became unbearable. Its texture is different from the round loaves of the dawn offering, denser, more substantial, designed to provide lasting nourishment during the challenging hours when cooking becomes difficult or impossible. This bread represents the practical wisdom of a people who have learned to adapt their food preparation to the rhythms of solar power. The beer offered to Rhea at midday is served in special vessels designed to keep it as cool as possible. The ceramic cups are thick-walled and kept in the underground storage chambers until the moment they are needed. Even so, by the time they reach the altar, the beer has warmed considerably, its temperature adjusted to match the ambient heat that fills every space not protected by stone and shadow. As the ceremony progresses, Kenty becomes aware of the profound silence that has settled over the temple complex. Even the doves that normally coo from the palm trees have fallen quiet, conserving their energy for the cooler hours of late afternoon. The only sounds are the gentle movements of the priests, the soft crackle of incense burning, and the barely audible whisper of hot air moving through the corridors and chambers. This silence is itself a form of worship, an acknowledgement that there are times when the divine presence is so overwhelming that words become inadequate. The midday ceremony is as much about patient endurance as active praise, recognizing that sometimes the most appropriate response to divine power is simply to survive its presence with grace and dignity. The ritual concludes with a prayer for the afternoon to come, asking Ra to moderate his power as he begins his descent toward the western horizon. The priests acknowledge that the god's full strength is necessary. Without it, the crops would not ripen, the Nile flood would not come, the forces of chaos would not be held at bay. But they also ask for mercy, for the wisdom to balance divine power with the practical needs of mortal life. As the formal ceremony ends, the priests remain in the sanctuary for a few moments of quiet reflection. The heat continues to build, even within the protective walls, and Kenty can feel perspiration gathering beneath his linen robes. The afternoon hours stretch ahead, long and challenging, requiring patience and careful management of energy and resources. Yet there is also a sense of accomplishment in having completed the midday ritual, of having maintained the proper relationship with Ra even at the peak of his dangerous power. The offerings have been made, the prayers spoken, the cosmic balance maintained for another day. The god continues his journey across the burning sky, and human life continues in the spaces of refuge and shadow that divine architecture and human wisdom have created. But as Kenty prepares to seek the coolest chambers of the temple for the afternoon rest that survival requires, he finds himself pondering a deeper mystery. The midday ritual honours Ra's overwhelming power, but what happens to that power as the day progresses? How does the terrible heat of noon transform into the gentler warmth of afternoon? And what does this daily moderation teach about the nature of divine mercy? Chapter 4. Afternoon shadows, the slow, turn toward evening. The shadows have begun their slow migration across the temple courtyards, no longer the sharp, abbreviated marks of midday, but growing longer as Ra begins his measured descent toward the western horizon. Kenty emerges from the deepest chambers of the temple, where he has spent the most brutal hours in cool meditation. feeling the subtle but unmistakable change in the quality of light and heat that signals the turning of the day. The limestone walls that radiated furnace-like heat just 2 hours ago now release their stored warmth more gently, creating currents of air that provide the first hint of relief since dawn. The temple's architecture, designed by builders who understood the rhythms of the desert sun, begins to work its ancient magic. Corridors that trapped heat during the morning now channel cooling breezes. Chambers that were unbearably bright at midday now glow with a softer, more manageable radiance. In the temple workshops, the craftsmen begin to stir from their enforced idleness. The bronze workers test their tools cautiously, finding that the metal has cooled enough to handle safely, though still warm to the touch. The stone carvers emerge from their underground refuges, squinting in the afternoon light as they assess whether conditions will allow them to resume their delicate work on the temple's eternal decorations. Kenty makes his way to the scriptorium, where the temple's scribes maintain the vast records that keep Egyptian civilization functioning. During the midday hours, even the hardy scribes found it difficult to work, their reed pens becoming too hot to hold comfortably, the papyrus becoming brittle and prone to cracking in the dry heat. But now, as the afternoon progresses, they can return to their essential task of recording the daily business of gods and mortals. The head scribe, an elderly man named Kaimwaset, whose fingers are permanently stained with black and red ink, sits at his low writing desk examining a partially completed text. His movements are slow and deliberate, conserved after the long hot hours of waiting. Before him lies a papyrus scroll detailing the temple's grain allocations for the month. How much wheat goes to the bakers, how much barley to the brewers, how much should be kept in reserve against the possibility of a poor harvest or delayed flood. The afternoon light is better for close work, Kaimwaset observes, dipping his reed pen in a pot of black ink made from carbon and gum arabic. Ra's power at midday is too harsh for old eyes, but now we can see clearly again. His pen moves across the papyrus in the flowing hieroglyphic script that transforms thoughts into permanent marks, creating records that will survive long after the writers themselves have gone to join the gods in the afterlife. Around him, younger scribes work on various documents, letters to be sent to other temples along the Nile, inventories of ritual objects and their condition, copies of sacred texts that must be maintained in perfect condition. The scriptorium hums with quiet activity as the scribes make up for the lost hours of midday, their pens scratching softly against the papyrus in a rhythm as steady as breathing. The afternoon brings different challenges than the brutal heat of midday. The light, though softer, requires careful management. Too much direct sunlight can still damage the delicate papyrus and fade the carefully mixed inks. The scribes position their work to take advantage of reflected light from the white limestone walls, creating illumination that is bright enough for detailed work but gentle enough to avoid eye strain. Kenty watches the scribes at their work, marvelling at the dedication required to maintain civilization's memory through the long succession of desert days. These men spend their lives transforming the spoken word into written form, preserving everything from royal decrees to shopping lists, from sacred hymns to practical instructions for mixing mortar. Their work is as essential to Egypt's survival as the farmers who grow grain or the priests who maintain the gods' favour. From the scriptorium, Kenty makes his way to the temple's textile workshops, where the afternoon hours bring their own specialised activities. The linen weavers, working at looms positioned to catch the oblique afternoon light, create the fine white cloth that serves both practical and sacred purposes. The flax from which the linen is made grows in the Nile Delta, its fibres softened by the river water and strengthened by the desert sun, then transformed through human skill into fabric fit for gods and pharaohs. The master weaver, a woman named Taweret whose hands move with practiced precision across the loom strings, explains the afternoon's advantages for her craft. The light now comes from the side, not from above, she says, her shuttle flying back and forth between the vertical threads. I can see the individual fibres clearly, catch any weakness or flaw before it becomes a problem in the finished cloth. The linen produced in these workshops serves multiple purposes within the temple complex. The finest cloth, woven from the most carefully selected flax fibres, becomes the clothing worn by the priests during the most sacred ceremonies. Slightly coarser grades provide everyday clothing for the temple staff. The heaviest linen becomes wrapping for mummies, ensuring that the dead are properly dressed for their journey to the afterlife. The weaving itself follows patterns established over centuries of tradition. The tension of the threads must be precise. Too tight and the cloth will be stiff and uncomfortable. Too loose and it will lack durability. The rhythm of the work creates its own meditation, the shuttle moving back and forth in time with the weaver's breathing, the growing fabric emerging row by row like a physical manifestation of patience and skill. In another part of the workshop, younger women work at spinning wheels, transforming raw flax fibres into the strong, even threads that the weavers require. The spinning requires its own expertise. The flax must be drawn out slowly and steadily, twisted just enough to create strength without making the thread too tight to weave easily. The afternoon light is perfect for this work, bright enough to see the quality of individual fibres, but not so harsh as to tire the eyes. As Kenty moves through the workshops, he notices how the changing light affects every aspect of temple life. The potters, working clay brought up from the riverbank, find that the afternoon heat helps their work dry more evenly, reducing the chance of cracks or warping. The leather workers, treating hides with oils and salts, appreciate the moderate warmth that helps the preservatives penetrate without making the leather too brittle. Even the temple's gardens benefit from the afternoon conditions. The gardeners emerge from their midday rest to tend plants that have been stressed by the morning heat. They work carefully among the vegetables and herbs, watering those that show signs of wilting, adjusting shade cloths to protect delicate seedlings from direct sunlight, harvesting fruits and vegetables that have ripened during the hot hours. The afternoon watering is a careful science, developed over generations of desert agriculture. Too much water and the plants will become soft and vulnerable to disease. Too little, and they will wither despite all other care. The gardeners have learned to read the subtle signs, the angle of leaves reaching for light, the colour of soil that indicates proper moisture, the behaviour of insects that reveals the health of the garden ecosystem. In the temple apiaries, the afternoon brings its own rhythms. The bees, which clustered tightly in their hives during the most brutal heat, begin to venture out again as the temperature moderates. Their movement patterns change throughout the day, following the flowers that open and close according to their own relationship with Ra's journey across the sky. The beekeepers, protected by veils and long sleeves despite the heat, work among the hives with the careful movements that generations of experience have taught them. The honey produced by these bees serves multiple purposes within the temple economy. Mixed with water, it creates a refreshing drink that helps sustain workers through the hot afternoons. Combined with beer, it produces the stronger beverages used in religious ceremonies. Applied to bread, it transforms simple grain into a food worthy of divine offering. The bees themselves are seen as sacred creatures, transforming the nectar of flowers into liquid sunlight through processes that seem miraculous to human observers. As the afternoon progresses, Kenty finds himself drawn once again to the main sanctuary, where preparations are beginning for the evening ritual. The afternoon ceremony is different from both dawn and midday observances, less urgent than the morning welcome, less overwhelming than the midday acknowledgement of peak power. The afternoon ritual recognises Ra's beginning descent toward the western horizon, the first subtle shift that will eventually lead to sunset and the god's nightly journey through the underworld. The priest responsible for the afternoon offerings moves with deliberate care as he arranges the altar. The foods selected for this time of day reflect the changing energy: bread that has been baked in the moderate heat of late morning, beer that has fermented to perfect readiness during the warm hours, fruits that have ripened slowly in the temple gardens. These offerings acknowledge the productive power of Ra's heat while celebrating the approaching relief of evening. The incense burned during the afternoon ceremony is different too, a blend that includes myrrh along with frankincense, creating a scent that is both energizing and calming. The myrrh, imported from the lands far to the south where the Nile begins its long journey to Egypt, represents the exotic gifts that flow into the kingdom through trade routes protected by Ra's light. The combination of resins creates smoke that rises steadily in the still afternoon air, carrying prayers for the evening hours to come. Through the sanctuary windows, Kenty can see the changing quality of light outside. The harsh white glare of midday has given way to a warmer, more golden radiance. The shadows cast by the temple walls and surrounding buildings are longer now, creating corridors of shade that will grow progressively cooler as the day advances. This is the light that artists love, bright enough to see clearly, warm enough to be flattering, angled enough to create the interplay of light and shadow that reveals the true shape of things. The afternoon ceremony includes prayers for the workers who must labour through the remaining hours of daylight, the farmers tending their irrigation channels, the merchants travelling the desert roads, the soldiers maintaining the kingdom's borders. These prayers acknowledge that while the priests can retreat to the temple's cool chambers, many people must continue their essential work under Ra's continuing heat. The ceremony asks for protection for these workers, for strength to endure the remaining hours before sunset brings relief. As the formal prayers conclude, Kenty remains in the sanctuary, watching the slow progression of light across the temple's interior surfaces. The golden rays that enter through the high windows move visibly as Ra continues his journey, creating an ever-changing pattern of illumination that serves as a natural sundial. The ancient builders positioned these windows with precise calculation, ensuring that the light would fall on specific sacred objects at specific times of day, creating a connection between cosmic order and earthly worship. The afternoon air carries sounds different from those of morning or midday. There is more movement now, more conversation, as people emerge from their heat-imposed isolation and begin to prepare for the evening's activities. From the temple kitchens comes the sound of preparation for the evening meal, the grinding of grain that was too hot to handle at midday, the chopping of vegetables that have been kept cool in underground storage, the gentle bubble of stews that will simmer slowly until sunset. Yet even as life begins to stir again within the temple complex, Kenty is aware of the vast desert that surrounds Memphis on all sides. Out there, beyond the green strip of the Nile Valley, the afternoon heat continues unabated, creating conditions that can kill the unprepared traveller within hours. The temple represents a small island of human civilization in an ocean of sand and sun, maintained through constant vigilance and careful management of precious resources. The afternoon shadows grow longer, moment by moment, and Kenty can feel the subtle, psychological shift that comes with this daily milestone. The most challenging part of the day is passing. Ra's power, while still formidable, is beginning its slow moderation toward the blessed relief of evening. Soon there will be work to do in preparation for the sunset ceremony, but for now there is this peaceful interlude, this time of gentle transition between the harsh necessities of survival and the approaching possibilities of renewal. But as he stands in the golden afternoon light, watching the eternal dance of sun and shadow across the ancient stones, Kenty finds himself wondering about the nature of divine mercy. Ra's heat is beginning to moderate, his light to grow warmer and more welcoming. Is this divine compassion a deliberate gift to the mortals who suffer under the desert sun? Or is it simply the natural consequence of cosmic law, as inevitable and impersonal as the movement of the stars? What does the daily cycle teach about the relationship between divine power and human need? Chapter 5, Sunset Prayers, Preparing for the Night Journey. The sun hangs lower in the western sky now, its fierce white heat mellowing to warm gold as Ra begins his most magnificent transformation of the day. The shadows have grown long and welcoming, stretching across the temple courtyards like dark fingers pointing eastward toward the coming night. Kenty can feel the subtle shift in the air itself, still warm, but no longer the crushing weight of midday heat. This is the hour when the desert begins to breathe again, when life tentatively emerges from its refuges to prepare for the blessed coolness that darkness will bring. In the temple workshops, the artisans have returned to their most delicate work. The afternoon's moderate heat has made their tools manageable again, their materials workable without the danger of heat damage that plagued the midday hours. The metalworkers hammer gold leaf onto ceremonial objects, their mallets ringing softly against anvils that have finally cooled enough to touch safely. Each strike must be precise. Gold leaf is precious beyond measure, imported from the mines far to the south, where Nubian workers extract it from quartz veins deep beneath the earth. The master goldsmith, Amenemheb, works with tools that have been in his family for 3 generations. His father taught him the secrets of working precious metals in the desert heat, and his grandfather before that learned the craft from the great masters who created treasures for the pharaohs of old. The knowledge flows like the Nile itself, from one generation to the next, carrying with it not just technical skill, but understanding of how materials behave under different conditions of heat and humidity. The gold is happiest in the late afternoon, Amenemheb explains to his young apprentice, who watches with careful attention as the master shapes a delicate amulet. Too hot and it becomes stubborn, fighting the hammer. Too cool and it grows brittle, likely to crack under pressure. But now, with Ra's blessing at this perfect temperature, it flows like water, taking whatever shape we desire. The apprentice nods, understanding that this wisdom applies to far more than metalworking. The entire rhythm of Egyptian life depends on reading Ra's moods, on understanding how divine energy manifests at different times of day. Those who learn to work with these rhythms prosper and create beauty. Those who fight against them struggle and often fail, their efforts broken against the overwhelming power of the sun, God's will. Around the goldsmith's workshop, other crafts resume their afternoon pace. The stoneworkers return to their delicate carving, chiselling hieroglyphs and decorative patterns into limestone blocks that will become part of temple walls or royal monuments. The work requires steady hands and clear vision. A single misplaced cut can ruin months of careful preparation. The afternoon light provides perfect conditions for such precision work, bright enough to see clearly but angled to reveal the subtle variations in the stone surface that guide the carver's tools. In the ceramic workshops, potters shape clay on wheels that turn with hypnotic regularity. The clay itself has been prepared through a process that takes advantage of the daily heat cycle, mixed with water in the early morning, left to mature during the hot midday hours, and now ready to be shaped as the temperature moderates. The potter's hands, wet with river water, guide the spinning clay into vessels that will hold the temple's sacred oils, store grain for the winter months, or carry water from the Nile to distant gardens. Each ceramic piece begins as formless mud dredged from the riverbank, the same rich silt that makes Egypt's agriculture possible. Through the application of human skill and Ra's heat, this humble material transforms into objects of beauty and utility. The process seems miraculous to those who observe it. Earth and water and fire combining through human intention to create something that can last for thousands of years. The afternoon light reveals details invisible during the harsh illumination of midday. The potter can see subtle variations in the clay's colour that indicate its moisture content, can observe the way the material responds to pressure that tells her when it's ready for the next stage of shaping. The ceramic workshop fills with the earthy smell of wet clay and the gentle sound of water splashing as vessels take form on the spinning wheels. Kenty moves through these workshops with growing appreciation for the complex web of skills that keeps the temple functioning. Every object used in the daily rituals represents hours of specialized labor, knowledge passed down through generations, materials gathered from across the known world. The simple act of offering bread to Ra depends on farmers who grow grain, millers who grind it, bakers who shape and fire it, potters who create the vessels to hold it, weavers who make the cloths to cover it. In the temple library, the afternoon brings optimal conditions for the most delicate work of all, the copying and restoration of sacred texts. The scribes who perform this work are the elite of their profession, trusted with documents that contain the accumulated wisdom of Egyptian civilization. Some of these papyrus scrolls are centuries old, their edges brown and brittle, their ink faded to barely visible traces. Preserving them for future generations requires skills that border on the miraculous. The master librarian, Hypnos, works at a desk positioned to catch the perfect afternoon light. Before him lies a scroll containing hymns to Ra that were already ancient when his grandfather was young. The papyrus has been damaged by time and heat, with several sections where the original text has become illegible. His task is to restore these passages by comparing them with similar texts from other temples, using his deep knowledge of religious literature to reconstruct the missing words. The afternoon light shows what midday light conceals, Hypnos explains to a younger scribe who assists him. Under the harsh glare of noon, damaged papyrus looks uniformly brown. But now, with Ra's light coming from the side, I can see the faint traces where ink once darkened the fibres. Sometimes a word thought lost forever reveals itself in the gentle illumination of late afternoon. The work requires infinite patience and profound scholarship. A single miscopied word could alter the meaning of a prayer, potentially disrupting the cosmic harmony that the texts are designed to maintain. The scribe must understand not just the literal meaning of the words, but their ritual purpose, their place in the larger structure of religious thought, their relationship to other passages in the vast corpus of sacred literature. As Hypnos works, other scribes around him copy texts for distribution to temples throughout Egypt. The kingdom's religious unity depends on maintaining identical versions of key rituals and prayers. A ceremony performed in Memphis must match exactly the same ceremony performed in Thebes or Abydos, ensuring that the gods receive consistent worship regardless of location. This standardization requires an enormous effort of copying and distribution, with scribes working constantly to reproduce texts with perfect accuracy. The late afternoon brings visitors to the temple, pilgrims who have travelled from distant villages to make offerings, merchants seeking divine blessing for their enterprises, officials conducting the kingdom's business with the temple administration. They move through the courtyards with the grateful ease of people who have survived another day under Ra's rule, their faces showing relief as they enter the blessed shade of the temple walls. Among today's visitors is a farmer named Seneb, who has journeyed 3 days from his village to the south. His small farm depends entirely on irrigation water drawn from a canal that branches off from the Nile. This year, the canal has been running lower than usual, and his crops are showing signs of stress. He comes to the temple seeking divine intervention, hoping that proper offerings and prayers might encourage Ra to moderate his heat and the river gods to provide more abundant water. Seneb carries with him the finest products of his struggling farm, a jar of honey from his bees, a basket of onions grown in his garden, a small amphora of the sharp cheese made from goat's milk. These offerings represent a significant sacrifice for a farmer of modest means, but he understands that divine favour must be earned through genuine generosity. The gods can see into human hearts, can distinguish between offerings made from abundance and those made from genuine need. The afternoon light reveals details invisible during the harsh illumination of midday. The potter can see subtle variations in the clay's colour that indicate its moisture content, can observe the way the material responds to pressure that tells her when it's ready for the next stage of shaping. The ceramic workshop fills with the earthy smell of wet clay and the gentle sound of water splashing as vessels take form on the spinning wheels. Kenti moves through these workshops with growing appreciation for the complex web of skills that keeps the temple functioning. Every object used in the daily rituals represents hours of specialised labour, knowledge passed down through generations, materials gathered from across the known world. The simple act of offering bread to Ra depends on farmers who grow grain, millers who grind it, bakers who shape and fire it, potters who create the vessels to hold it, weavers who make the cloths to cover it. In the temple library, the afternoon brings optimal conditions for the most delicate work of all, the copying and restoration of sacred texts. The scribes who perform this work are the elite of their profession, entrusted with documents that contain the accumulated wisdom of Egyptian civilization. Some of these papyrus scrolls are centuries old, their edges brown and brittle, their ink faded to barely visible traces. Preserving them for future generations requires skills that border on the miraculous. The master librarian, Jehutimos, works at a desk positioned to catch the perfect afternoon light. Before him lies a scroll containing hymns to Re that were already ancient when his grandfather was young. The papyrus has been damaged by time and heat, with several sections where the original text has become illegible. His task is to restore these passages by comparing them with similar texts from other temples, using his deep knowledge of religious literature to reconstruct the missing words. The afternoon light shows what midday light conceals, Jehutimos explains to a younger scribe who assists him. Under the harsh glare of noon, damaged papyrus looks uniformly brown. But now, with Ra's light coming from the side, I can see the faint traces where ink once darkened the fibres. Sometimes a word thought lost forever reveals itself in the gentle illumination of late afternoon. The work requires infinite patience and profound scholarship. A single miscopied word could alter the meaning of a prayer, potentially disrupting the cosmic harmony that the texts are designed to maintain. The scribe must understand not just the literal meaning of the words, but their ritual purpose, their place in the larger structure of religious thought, their relationship to other passages in the vast corpus of sacred literature. As Jehutimos works, other scribes around him copy texts for distribution to temples throughout Egypt. The kingdom's religious unity depends on maintaining identical versions of key rituals and prayers. A ceremony performed in Memphis must match exactly the same ceremony performed in Thebes or Abydos, ensuring that the gods receive consistent worship regardless of location. This standardization requires an enormous effort of copying and distribution, with scribes working constantly to reproduce texts with perfect accuracy. The late afternoon brings visitors to the temple, pilgrims who have travelled from distant villages to make offerings, merchants seeking divine blessing for their enterprises, officials conducting the kingdom's business with the temple administration. They move through the courtyards with the grateful ease of people who have survived another day under Ra's rule, their faces showing relief as they enter the blessed shade of the temple walls. Among today's visitors is a farmer named Seneb, who has journeyed 3 days from his village to the south. His small farm depends entirely on irrigation water drawn from a canal that branches off from the Nile. This year, the canal has been running lower than usual, and his crops are showing signs of stress. He comes to the temple seeking divine intervention, hoping that proper offerings and prayers might encourage Ra to moderate his heat and the river gods to provide more abundant water. Seneb carries with him the finest products of his struggling farm, a jar of honey from his bees, a basket of onions grown in his garden, a small amphora of the sharp cheese made from goat's milk. These offerings represent a significant sacrifice for a farmer of modest means, but he understands that divine favour must be earned through genuine generosity. The gods can see into human hearts, can distinguish between offerings made from abundance and those made from genuine need. The purification process follows patterns established over millennia of desert worship. First, the washing of hands and feet that have touched the earth during the day's labours. Then, the cleansing of face and body that prepares the priest to stand before divine power without shame or contamination. Finally, the donning of fresh linen garments that represent the renewed purity required for evening worship. As the sun continues its descent toward the western horizon, the quality of light within the temple begins its most dramatic transformation of the day. The harsh white glare of noon has given way to the warm gold of afternoon, and now that gold begins to deepen toward the rich amber that precedes sunset. The temple's white limestone walls glow with reflected light, creating an atmosphere that seems almost magical to those who experience it. The changing light affects everyone within the temple complex, from the youngest apprentice to the most senior priest. There is a stirring of energy, an anticipation that builds as the day approaches its climax. The sunset ceremony represents the most dramatic moment in the daily cycle, when Ra reaches the western horizon and prepares to enter the underworld for his nightly battle with the forces of chaos and destruction. Kenti feels this anticipation in his own body as he makes his way toward the main sanctuary. The day's heat has not yet broken. The air is still warm, the stones still radiate accumulated solar energy, but there is a promise in the atmosphere, a sense that relief is coming. Soon Ra will disappear beyond the western horizon, and the blessed coolness of night will spread across the land like a gentle benediction. But first comes the most important ritual of the day, the ceremony that will help ensure Ra's safe passage through the underworld and his triumphant return at dawn. As Kenti approaches the sanctuary where his fellow priests are making final preparations, he reflects on the profound responsibility they bear. The sunset prayers are not mere expressions of gratitude or requests for favour. They are active participation in the cosmic order, human contributions to the divine work that keeps the universe functioning. The offerings have been arranged with perfect precision. The incense prepared according to ancient formulas, the sacred texts open to the proper passages. Everything is ready for the ceremony that will bid farewell to Ra's light and ask for his protection during the dark hours ahead. Yet as Kenti takes his place among the other priests, he finds himself wondering about the mystery that lies at the heart of the daily cycle. What power sustains Ra during his nightly journey through the underworld? What ensures his victory over the forces of darkness and his return each dawn with renewed strength? Chapter 6. The Dark Hours, Waiting for Ra's Return. The sun touches the western horizon like a great golden disk balanced on the edge of the world, and Kenti feels the profound shift that marks the day's most sacred transition. The sunset ceremony has concluded with proper reverence, the offerings made and prayers spoken to ensure Ra's safe passage into the underworld realm, where he must battle the serpent Apophis through the dark hours. Now comes the time of waiting, the long night vigil that tests human faith against the ancient fear that this time, perhaps, the sun god might not emerge victorious at dawn. The temple courtyard, which blazed with reflected heat just hours ago, now radiates a gentler warmth as the accumulated solar energy slowly dissipates into the cooling air. The limestone walls that trapped and magnified Ra's power throughout the day become sources of blessed comfort as the desert night begins its rapid descent toward actual coolness. Within an hour, those same walls will be cool to the touch. Within 3 hours, they will provide welcome warmth against the surprising chill that always comes when the desert sun disappears. Kenti joins the other priests in lighting the evening lamps that will maintain sacred illumination through the dark hours. These lamps burn oil pressed from olives grown in temple groves, their flames representing humanity's small but determined defiance against the darkness that swallows the world each night. The oil itself has been blessed through elaborate ceremonies, transformed from ordinary plant essence into a sacred substance capable of carrying divine light through the dangerous hours when Ra's radiance is absent from the sky. Each lamp requires careful tending. The wick must be trimmed to prevent smoking, the oil level monitored to ensure the flame never dies, the glass or ceramic housing cleaned to allow maximum light to escape. The priests who maintain the temple's nocturnal illumination understand that their work represents far more than simple practical necessity. These flames are beacons that help guide Ra through the underworld, reference points that connect the realm of the living with the cosmic battle taking place in the hidden regions below the earth. The evening meal is served in the temple's common dining area, a large chamber whose walls are covered with painted scenes depicting the sun's daily journey across the sky and nightly passage through the underworld. The images serve both decorative and instructional purposes, reminding everyone who eats here of the cosmic drama in which they participate through their daily rituals and offerings. Children who grow up seeing these images absorb their meaning naturally, understanding without formal teaching that human life depends entirely on Ra's continued victory over the forces of chaos. Tonight's meal reflects the abundance that Ra's heat has made possible throughout the long day. Fresh fish from the Nile caught by fishermen who worked in the pre-dawn coolness before the sun made their labour unbearable. The fish has been grilled over coals from the sacred fires, its flesh flavoured with herbs that grew in the temple gardens under the blazing midday sun. Bread baked from grain that ripened in Ra's heat, its crust golden brown and its interior soft and nourishing. Vegetables that demonstrate the miracle of desert agriculture, onions and leeks that grew in carefully irrigated plots, lettuce and cucumber that survived the brutal heat through precise management of water and shade, beans and lentils that transform desert soil into protein-rich nourishment through processes that seem magical to those who observe them. Each bite represents a small victory over the harsh conditions that make most of Egypt uninhabitable, a triumph of human ingenuity working in harmony with divine power. The beer served with the evening meal is fermented throughout the day in the controlled warmth of the temple brewery. Its golden colour reflects the captured essence of barley that grew under Ra's light, while its gentle alcoholic content provides both relaxation after the day's stress and courage for facing the uncertain hours of darkness ahead. The brewing process itself mirrors the daily cycle of death and renewal. Grain dies to become malt, malt dies to become beer, yet through this apparent destruction, new forms of nourishment emerge. As the meal progresses, conversation naturally turns to the day's events and tomorrow's preparations. The temple community shares information about the condition of various projects, which walls need repair after the day's expansion and contraction, which garden plots require additional water, which ritual objects show signs of wear from constant use in the desert environment. This practical discussion takes place against the backdrop of deeper concern about Ra's nightly journey, the unspoken anxiety that underlies all human activity during the dark hours. The temple's senior priests discuss the astronomical observations that help them track Ra's progress through the underworld. Ancient texts describe the 12 hours of night as corresponding to 12 regions that the sun god must traverse, each with its own dangers and guardian deities. The priests maintain careful records of star positions and moon phases that allow them to estimate Ra's location at any given time during his hidden journey. This knowledge provides comfort to the community. Even though Ra is invisible, his approximate position can be calculated and appropriate prayers offered for each stage of his passage. Young Seneb, the newest member of the priestly community, listens carefully to these discussions while helping clear the dishes from the evening meal. At 19, he has been serving in the temple for less than 2 years, and the nightly cycle of anxiety and relief still affects him strongly. During his childhood in a farming village along the Nile, he took the sun's daily return for granted. Only after joining the temple community did he begin to understand the cosmic drama that plays out every night, the genuine possibility that chaos might triumph over order and plunge the world into eternal darkness. The stars tell us that Ra has entered the 5th hour of night, observes Kaymoiset, the elderly scribe whose astronomical knowledge rivals that of the royal court's official stargazers. He is passing through the region of the Lake of Fire, where the souls of the wicked are punished and the serpent Apophis gathers strength for his assault on the solar bark. This is always a dangerous time. We must maintain our prayers and keep the sacred flames burning brightly. The mention of Apophis sends a subtle shiver through the assembled community. The great serpent represents everything that threatens the ordered world that Ra's light makes possible. Chaos, destruction, the return to the primordial darkness that existed before creation began. According to the sacred texts, Apophis lies in wait each night in the deepest regions of the underworld, seeking to devour Ra's solar bark and end the cycle of daily renewal that sustains all life. Only the sun god's power, combined with the assistance of other deities and the prayers of faithful humans, prevents this cosmic catastrophe. After the meal, the community disperses to various evening activities that help pass the dark hours while maintaining spiritual vigilance. Some priests gather in the library to study sacred text by lamplight, deepening their understanding of the cosmic order they serve. Others tend the workshop fires that must be kept burning through the night, ensuring that essential crafts can resume immediately when Ra's light returns. Still others maintain prayer vigils in the various shrines throughout the temple complex, offering continuous petition for the sun god's safe passage through the underworld. Kenti chooses to spend the evening hours in the temple's astronomical observation chamber, a room built on the highest level of the complex with openings that allow clear views of the night sky in all directions. Here, the temple's stargazers maintain their ancient watch, tracking the movement of celestial bodies that tell the story of Ra's hidden journey through the regions below the earth. The chief astronomer, Amenhotep, has spent more than 30 years studying the night sky from this chamber. His knowledge of star patterns and planetary movements rivals that of the royal astronomers who serve the pharaoh's court in Memphis. Yet unlike those court officials, whose primary concern is predicting favourable dates for royal activities, Amenhotep focuses entirely on the cosmic drama of Ra's nightly battle with chaos. See how the constellation of the Hippo moves across the northern sky, Amenhotep explains, pointing toward a group of stars that ancient astronomers identified with protective deities. These stars never set below the horizon. They circle endlessly around the pole star, maintaining eternal vigilance against the forces of disorder. Their movement tells us that the cosmic order continues to function even when Ra's light is absent from our immediate view. The observation chamber contains instruments that allow precise measurement of star positions and planetary movements. Bronze sighting devices help align observations with mathematical accuracy. Water clocks measure the passage of time during the dark hours when sundials become useless. Carefully maintained records document celestial events over many years, allowing the astronomers to predict eclipses, planetary conjunctions, and other phenomena that might affect the cosmic balance. The work requires extraordinary patience and attention to detail. A single misaligned observation could throw off calculations for months. A carelessly recorded measurement might lead to incorrect predictions about favourable times for important rituals. The astronomers understand that their work directly supports the temple's primary mission of maintaining proper relationship with the divine powers that govern existence. As the night deepens, the temperature continues to drop with the surprising rapidity that characterises desert climates. The same clear skies that allow Ra's heat to build to unbearable intensity during the day now permit that heat to radiate away quickly once the sun disappears. Within a few hours of sunset, the air becomes genuinely cool, requiring the addition of woolen cloaks over the linen garments that provided comfort during the day. This daily temperature cycle creates its own rhythm of activity within the temple complex. Work that was impossible during the scorching midday hours becomes comfortable again as the night progresses. The metalworkers return to their forges, taking advantage of the cool air to work on projects that require sustained physical effort. The bakers begin preparing dough for tomorrow's bread, kneading and shaping loaves that will be ready for the ovens when Ra's returning light makes baking practical again. The temple's night watch maintains security and tends the various fires that must never be allowed to die. These guardians move through the corridors and courtyards with oil lamps that cast dancing shadows on the ancient walls, their footsteps echoing softly in the vast spaces that seem even larger in the darkness. Their presence provides comfort to those trying to sleep, reassurance that human vigilance continues even when divine light is absent. In the temple's healing chambers, physicians tend patients whose conditions require nighttime care. Desert medicine has developed sophisticated understanding of how human health responds to the daily cycle of heat and coolness. Some ailments improve during the cool night hours, while others become more troublesome. The physicians maintain detailed records of these patterns, developing treatments that work with rather than against the natural rhythms that Ra's daily journey creates. The temple stores of medicinal herbs reflect the diversity of Egypt's trade connections and agricultural innovation. Willow bark for reducing fever and pain, harvested from trees that grow along the Nile's banks. Frankincense and myrrh for treating respiratory ailments, imported from the distant lands where these precious resins are gathered. Garlic and onions for fighting infection, grown in the temple's own gardens through careful management of irrigation and soil preparation. Each medicinal plant has its own relationship with Ra's daily cycle. Some herbs are most potent when gathered at dawn, just as the sun god begins his daily journey. Others reach peak effectiveness when harvested at midday, when the sun's power is strongest. Still others must be collected during the dark hours, when their active principles concentrate in preparation for the coming day. The physicians who prepare these medicines understand that timing is as important as dosage in determining therapeutic effectiveness. As midnight approaches, marked by the precise positioning of certain stars overhead, the temple community enters the deepest phase of the nightly vigil. This is the time when Ra faces his greatest danger, when Apophis marshals maximum strength for the assault on the solar bark. Ancient texts describe this as the moment when the cosmic battle reaches its climax, when the forces of order and chaos meet in direct confrontation that will determine whether dawn will come again. The midnight ritual involves the entire temple community, from the youngest apprentice to the most senior priest. Special prayers are offered for Ra's protection, additional incense burned to strengthen the connection between Earth and the divine realm, extra offerings made to demonstrate human commitment to the cosmic order. The ritual acknowledges human helplessness in the face of cosmic forces, while affirming determination to contribute whatever assistance mortals can provide. The ceremony takes place in the main sanctuary, illuminated by dozens of oil lamps that transform the sacred space into a pool of warm light surrounded by infinite darkness. The golden surfaces of ritual objects gleam in the flickering illumination, creating an atmosphere that feels both intimate and cosmic. The priests' voices blend in ancient chants that were already old when the pyramids were built, words whose meaning transcends their literal content to express fundamental human hope for the continuation of existence. After the midnight ritual, the community settles into the deepest phase of the Night Watch. Some priests maintain formal prayer vigils, while others pursue quiet activities that help pass the dark hours, repairing ritual equipment, copying sacred texts, preparing materials for tomorrow's ceremonies. The overall atmosphere combines vigilance with calm acceptance, recognition that the cosmic drama playing out in the underworld lies beyond human control, while affirming commitment to maintain proper spiritual posture during the crisis. The temple's oil lamps burn steadily through these dark hours, their flames representing humanity's small but determined contribution to the battle between light and darkness. Each lamp requires periodic attention, adding oil, trimming wicks, cleaning glass chimneys, but the work is distributed among many hands so that no one person bears the entire responsibility for maintaining illumination. The shared labour creates community bonds while ensuring that the sacred light never fails. In the quietest hours before dawn, when the Night Watch estimates that Ra has entered the final phases of his underworld journey, the temple's atmosphere becomes increasingly expectant. Conversations grow softer, movements more careful, as if loud noises might somehow interfere with the cosmic processes taking place in the hidden realm below the earth. This is the time of greatest anxiety and greatest hope, when the eternal question that haunts every night reaches its climax. Will Ra emerge victorious from his battle with chaos, or will this be the night when darkness finally triumphs? As Kenty maintains his vigil in the observation chamber, watching the slow wheel of stars across the desert sky, he reflects on the profound mystery of faith that defines human relationship with divine power. Every night brings the same test of trust, the same requirement to believe that cosmic order will triumph over chaos despite the absence of visible evidence. The sun god's daily return has never failed in living memory, yet each night the possibility of failure feels genuinely real, requiring fresh acts of faith and renewed commitment to the rituals that support divine victory. But now, as the stars indicate that dawn approaches, as the deepest darkness begins its almost imperceptible retreat toward the eastern horizon, Kenty finds himself pondering the greatest mystery of all. What power sustains human hope through these dark hours? What enables mortals to maintain faith in divine victory when faced each night with the terrifying possibility that this time chaos might finally triumph over order? Chapter 7. The Eternal Cycle. How sun worship shaped civilization. The eastern horizon begins its subtle transformation from deep blue-black to the faintest suggestion of grey, and Kenty feels the familiar stirring of hope that has sustained humanity through countless nights of uncertainty. The stars that have wheeled overhead through the dark hours begin their daily retreat, yielding dominance to the approaching light that signals Ra's victorious emergence from the underworld. The cosmic battle has been fought once more in the hidden realm below the earth, and once again the forces of order have triumphed over chaos, ensuring that the world will continue for another day. From his position in the observation chamber, Kenty watches the gradual lightening of the sky with the mixture of relief and gratitude that never entirely disappears, no matter how many dawns he has witnessed. The ancient fear that this time the sun might not return has been proven groundless once again, yet the fear itself serves an essential purpose. It maintains human awareness of dependence on divine power, prevents the complacency that might lead to neglect of the sacred duties that help sustain cosmic order. The pre-dawn air carries a crystalline coolness that will vanish within hours of Ra's appearance, but for now provides blessed relief after the long day and night cycle that has just concluded. The temple's limestone walls, which absorbed and radiated fierce heat throughout yesterday's blazing hours, now feel almost cold to the touch, their surfaces damp with the slight dew that forms during the desert's brief period of relative humidity. Throughout the temple complex, the community begins to stir in preparation for the dawn ritual that will welcome Ra's return. The bakers who have worked through the cool night hours put finishing touches on the bread that will be offered to the sun god at sunrise. The brewers check the fermentation of beer that has progressed through the dark hours, transforming simple grain into the complex beverage that nourishes both gods and mortals. The oil lamp tenders trim wicks and refill reservoirs, ensuring that sacred illumination will burn steadily until Ra's light makes artificial flames unnecessary. Young Seneb moves through his pre-dawn duties with movements that have become automatic over his 2 years of temple service. yet his mind remains focused on the profound mystery of the daily cycle that governs his life. Yesterday morning seems simultaneously immediate and distant. Immediate because the routine is so familiar. Distant because the day and night that have passed contain within them the entire drama of cosmic existence. Each daily cycle represents a complete story of creation, struggle, death, and renewal that mirrors the larger patterns of seasonal change and human life itself. The temple's senior priests gather in the preparation chamber, their faces showing the particular combination of exhaustion and exhilaration that comes from successfully completing another night vigil. These men have maintained their watch through the dangerous hours when Re fought his way through the underworld, offering prayers and burning incense to support the sun god's battle against the serpent Ephesus. Their vigilance has contributed to the cosmic victory that the approaching dawn represents, yet they understand that tomorrow night will bring the same challenge, requiring the same dedication and the same leap of faith. Kamost, the ritual reader whose voice has guided countless dawn ceremonies, prepares the sacred text that will be needed for the morning ritual. The papyrus scrolls show signs of their age and constant use, edges brown and slightly brittle, surfaces marked with the careful annotations that generations of priests have added to clarify pronunciation and meaning. These texts contain words that have been spoken at sunrise for more than 1,000 years, yet they remain as essential now as when they were first written. The preservation of exact wording ensures that each dawn ceremony connects the present moment with the vast sweep of Egyptian history, maintaining continuity with the ancestors who first recognized Ra's power and established the rituals that honor it. The astronomical calculations that tracked Ra's progress through the underworld have proven accurate once again. The sun god has completed his 12-hour journey through the regions below the earth, has defeated the forces of chaos that threaten to end the ordered world, and now prepares to emerge triumphant in the eastern sky. The precision of these calculations demonstrates the sophisticated understanding that Egyptian civilization has developed over millennia of careful observation, mathematical analysis, and accumulated wisdom about the cosmic order that governs existence. As the grey light in the east grows gradually stronger, Kenti reflects on the profound legacy that this daily ritual cycle has created. For more than 3,000 years, Egyptian priests have gathered at dawn to welcome Ra's return, have offered bread and beer and incense to sustain the sun god's journey across the sky, have maintained night vigils to support his battle with the forces of darkness. This unbroken chain of devotion has created one of the longest continuous religious traditions in human history, a testament to the power of daily practice to preserve civilization across generations. The temple itself stands as physical evidence of this enduring commitment. Every stone has been quarried from the desert cliffs and transported to its present location through human labour dedicated to divine service. Every wall has been raised by workers who understood that they were creating something that would outlast their individual lives, contributing to a structure that would shelter the sacred rituals for centuries to come. Every carved hieroglyph and painted scene represents hours of skilled craftsmanship, devoted to preserving the stories and symbols that give meaning to the daily cycle of worship. The economic system that supports the temple demonstrates how sun worship has shaped Egyptian society far beyond the boundaries of religious practice. The vast agricultural estates that provide grain for bread and brewing depend entirely on irrigation systems designed to work with the Nile flood cycle, which is itself driven by Ra's seasonal journey across the sky. The trade networks that bring frankincense from Arabia and gold from Nubia exist because Egyptian civilization has achieved the stability and prosperity that comes from successful adaptation to the solar cycle that governs desert life. The educational traditions that train each generation of priests preserve knowledge that extends far beyond religious ritual. Temple schools teach mathematics and astronomy, medicine and engineering, literature and history. The scribes who copy sacred texts also maintain the administrative records that keep Egyptian civilization functioning. The priests who perform daily rituals also serve as teachers, judges, physicians and advisors to the broader community. The the temple has become a centre of learning that preserves and transmits the accumulated wisdom of Egyptian culture. The first direct ray of sunlight breaks over the eastern horizon, and the dawn ritual begins with the same words that have greeted Ra's return for countless generations. Yet Kenti understands that this ancient ceremony connects not only with the past but also with the future, ensuring that knowledge of cosmic order will continue to guide human life for generations yet to come. The children who observe today's ritual will become the priests and leaders of tomorrow, carrying forward the understanding that civilization depends on maintaining proper relationship with the divine powers that govern existence. The influence of solar worship extends throughout Egyptian art and architecture, creating aesthetic traditions that reflect cosmic harmony. Temple buildings are oriented to capture the sun's light at significant moments of the daily and seasonal cycles. Painted decorations follow patterns that mirror the movement of celestial bodies across the sky. Sculptural representations of gods and pharaohs embody principles of proportion and balance that reflect the ordered nature of Ra's rule over the universe. Egyptian medicine has developed through careful observation of how human health responds to the daily cycle of heat and coolness, light and darkness. Physicians understand that certain illnesses follow patterns related to solar influence, that some treatments work best when administered at specific times of day, that the body's natural rhythms align with the cosmic order that Ra maintains through his eternal journey. This knowledge has led to sophisticated healing practices that recognize the interconnection between human health and cosmic harmony. The legal and political systems of Egyptian civilization reflect principles derived from solar worship. The pharaoh rules as Ra's earthly representative, responsible for maintaining the same kind of order in human society that the sun god maintains in the cosmic realm. Laws are designed to prevent chaos and promote harmony, reflecting the eternal struggle between order and disorder that plays out each night in the underworld. Justice itself is understood as a reflection of cosmic balance, requiring human institutions to mirror divine principles. Agricultural practices throughout the Nile Valley follow rhythms established by solar worship. Farmers plant and harvest according to calendars that coordinate human activity with cosmic cycles. Irrigation systems are designed to work with the flood patterns that result from Ra's seasonal movement across the sky. Even the development of new crops and farming techniques takes place within the framework of understanding that all earthly abundance ultimately depends on the sun, God's continued blessing. The craft traditions that create the objects used in daily life reflect aesthetic principles derived from temple art. Potters shape vessels that echo the circular form of the sun disk. Weavers create patterns that mirror the regular alternation of light and darkness. Metalworkers develop techniques for working gold that capture and reflect Ra's radiance. Every household object becomes a reminder of the cosmic order that governs existence, connecting ordinary daily activities with the sacred principles that give them meaning. The mathematical and astronomical knowledge preserved in temple libraries has enabled Egyptian civilization to achieve remarkable precision in architecture, engineering, and timekeeping. The pyramid builders who created monuments that still inspire wonder after 4,000 years used mathematical principles originally developed for calculating solar positions and predicting flood cycles. The engineers who designed irrigation systems that transformed desert into farmland applied hydraulic knowledge that emerged from observing how Ra's heat affects water flow and evaporation. Egyptian literature and philosophy have been profoundly shaped by the daily experience of solar worship. The great wisdom texts that guide moral behaviour reflect principles derived from observing cosmic order. Poetry and storytelling traditions draw imagery from the eternal cycle of dawn, noon, sunset, and renewal. Even practical writing, letters, contracts, administrative records, incorporates references to solar symbolism that connects mundane affairs with cosmic significance. The preservation of Egyptian civilization through periods of political upheaval and foreign conquest demonstrates the stabilizing power of solar worship. When dynasties fell and kingdoms crumbled, the daily ritual cycle continued in temples throughout the land, maintaining cultural continuity that transcended political change. The shared experience of welcoming Ra's dawn and bidding farewell to his sunset created bonds of identity that unified people across class and regional differences, providing a foundation for cultural survival that proved stronger than military conquest or economic disruption. The influence of Egyptian solar worship spread far beyond the borders of the Nile Valley, through trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. Mediterranean civilizations adopted Egyptian artistic motifs and architectural principles. Greek philosophers studied in Egyptian temple schools, absorbing mathematical and astronomical knowledge that would later influence European intellectual development. Roman emperors claimed divine authority based partly on Egyptian models of solar kingship. The symbolic vocabulary of sun worship, the solar disk, the Eye of Ra, the scarab beetle, the phoenix, became part of the common heritage of ancient Mediterranean culture. The development of writing itself in Egyptian civilization was closely connected to the needs of solar worship. The earliest hieroglyphic texts record religious rituals and astronomical observations. The papyrus that made writing portable and practical was manufactured using techniques that took advantage of the Nile Valley's unique environmental conditions. The scribal schools that preserved and transmitted written knowledge were housed in temples dedicated to solar deities. Writing became a sacred activity that connected human intelligence with divine wisdom, creating the foundation for all subsequent intellectual development. The medical traditions that emerged from temple practice influenced healing practices throughout the ancient world. Egyptian physicians were sought after in foreign courts because of their sophisticated understanding of how natural cycles affect human health. Surgical techniques developed for mummification advanced knowledge of human anatomy. Pharmaceutical knowledge based on solar-influenced plant properties contributed to the development of effective treatments for numerous ailments. The integration of spiritual and physical healing in Egyptian medicine created models that influenced medical practice for centuries. The engineering achievements that made Egyptian civilization possible, the pyramids, the temples, the irrigation systems, the cities, all reflect principles derived from solar worship. The precise orientation of monuments to capture sunlight at significant moments demonstrates mathematical and astronomical knowledge of remarkable sophistication. The massive scale of construction projects shows the organizational capability that emerges when entire populations share common religious beliefs and cosmic understanding. The durability of Egyptian monuments proves the effectiveness of building techniques developed to withstand the harsh environmental conditions that Ra's power creates. As the morning light grows stronger and the dawn ritual reaches its conclusion, Kenti understands that he participates in something far greater than a simple religious ceremony. The daily welcome of Ra's return connects him with thousands of years of human experience, with countless generations who have found meaning and purpose in the eternal cycle of solar death and renewal. The bread he offers, the prayers he speaks, the incense he burns, all contribute to a tradition that has shaped one of humanity's greatest civilizations and continues to influence human understanding of cosmic order. The legacy of solar worship extends into the deepest structures of human consciousness, creating patterns of thought and feeling that persist long after specific religious beliefs have changed. The daily rhythm of awakening and sleeping, working and resting, follows cycles originally understood in terms of Ra's journey across the sky. The seasonal celebrations that mark agricultural cycles preserve memories of festivals originally dedicated to solar deities. The architectural traditions that orient buildings to capture natural light reflect principles first developed in Egyptian temples. Yet perhaps the most profound legacy of solar worship lies in its demonstration that human beings can create meaning and purpose by aligning their lives with cosmic rhythms larger than individual existence. The priest who rises before dawn to welcome Ra's return participates in something eternal, connects his brief mortal life with patterns that have endured for millennia, and will continue long after he himself has joined the ancestors in the afterlife. The daily ritual creates a sense of cosmic citizenship, of belonging to an ordered universe where human actions matter because they contribute to the maintenance of divine harmony. The influence of Egyptian solar worship on subsequent religious traditions demonstrates its enduring power to speak to fundamental human needs. The emphasis on daily ritual practice influenced Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The symbolic association of divine power with light and solar imagery appears in religious traditions throughout the world. The architectural principles developed for solar temples influenced the design of churches, mosques, and synagogues. The integration of astronomical knowledge with religious practice became a feature of many later civilizations. Even in the modern world, when scientific understanding has replaced mythological explanations of solar phenomena, the daily experience of sunrise and sunset continues to evoke responses that echo ancient patterns of worship. The human need to find meaning in natural cycles, to connect individual life with cosmic order, to participate in something larger than personal existence. These fundamental aspects of human nature were first given systematic expression in the solar temples of ancient Egypt. The daily cycle that began yesterday morning with Khenti's awakening to Ra's first light has completed its eternal pattern, yet it represents only one turn in the endless wheel of cosmic renewal that sustains all existence. Tomorrow will bring the same cycle, the same opportunities for participation in divine order, the same challenges of maintaining faith through the dark hours and celebrating renewal with the dawn. The rituals will continue as they have for thousands of years, adapting to changing circumstances while preserving the essential understanding that human life finds its deepest meaning through alignment with the cosmic rhythms that govern all existence. In the growing warmth of Ra's returning light, as the night vigil ends and the day's activities begin once more, Khenti feels the profound satisfaction that comes from having participated in the eternal work of creation. Like countless priests before him, and countless more who will follow, he has helped maintain the sacred order that keeps chaos at bay, has contributed his small part to the cosmic harmony that makes civilized life possible. The sun rises once more over the ancient temples of Memphis, and the eternal cycle continues, carrying within it all the accumulated wisdom and devotion of humanity's longest conversation with the divine powers that govern existence.